What do you do when the woman you love, your wife, laughs just a little too hard at another man's whisper? What if the crowd around you joins in, but you're the only one who hears the punchline for what it really is? I watched my glass drain itself that night. I don't remember deciding to drink at all. But by the time Jessica raised her flute and said to real men, I was already swallowing back more than champagne. The rooftop buzzed with soft music and expensive cologne. Fairy lights strung like constellations above us. It was supposed to be a celebration, my 38th birthday. But if I'm being honest, I'd already started feeling like a ghost in my own life long before that night. Let me back up. I'm Michael. I run a fitness studio in downtown Denver. Weights, calisthenics, mental grit. We train corporate guys who want to sweat like athletes and housewives, tougher than they look. It's good work, fulfilling. Built it from scratch after 2 tours overseas and a few years of floating through jobs that never stuck. Jessica, she was my anchor at first. Sharp-witted, gorgeous in that way that made other women quiet when she walked in. She worked in marketing, ran circles around half the execs at her firm. We were solid, or I thought we were. Now, back to that rooftop. It was her idea to throw the party. Said I deserved to be celebrated. Said we'd keep it innate. 35 people, live jazz, and a ridiculous cake shaped like a barbell. I didn't want it, but I nodded. Lately, nodding was easier than negotiating. Things felt off from the moment we arrived. She was electric more than usual, laughing louder, drinking faster, and she kept brushing past me like I was a coat rack, not a husband. I tried to chalk it up to nerves, or the pressure of hosting. But every time I turned around, she was farther away. And then I saw it. She was at the balcony's edge holding a glass of rose head tilted toward some guy I'd never seen before. Mid-30s scruffy beard blazer with the sleeves pushed up like he'd just walked off a fashion block. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear. Jessica's head fell back with laughter. Big, full, open-mouth laughter, the kind I hadn't seen from her in months. Not with me. That alone was enough to punch a hole in my chest. But then she raised her glass, hers and his clinking together, and said it to real men. The words rang out like a slap. Laughter followed. Someone even whistled. I didn't make a scene. I didn't storm over. I didn't ask who he was or why her hand lingered on his arm. I just drained my glass, set it down on a table that wobbled slightly beneath its own weight. And I walked out. No coat, no goodbye, just out. The elevator down from the rooftop was empty. I remember watching my reflection in its mirrored walls, straight back, clenched jaw. A man holding himself together by instinct. Not rage, not yet, just clarity. The cold air hit my face when the doors opened at the lobby. Denver nights are sharp and spring clean, unforgiving. I stood there on the sidewalk, breathing in deep, letting the chill burn away whatever wine was still in my blood. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Jessica's name lighting up the screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned left, heading nowhere in particular, like a man walking away from a building he just set fire to. Because in a way, I had. And as I disappeared into the dark, one thought throbbed in my mind, steady as a drum. That wasn't just a toast. That was a warning. The smell of scrambled eggs hit me before I even turned the corner into the kitchen. Jessica was humming. She always hummed when she cooked. Something light, tuneless, used to make the place feel warm, lived in. But now, in that moment, it felt like theater. A prop melody floating through a room that had gone hollow. She stood barefoot in my shirt, flipping eggs like we were still us, like the night before hadn't happened, as if to real men wasn't still ringing in my ears like a bell struck too hard. "Morning," she said, cheerful without turning. Coffee's fresh. I sat down at the edge of the counter, saying nothing for a second. My mind scanned the kitchen like it was a set. The bright window, the French press, that ridiculous mug she loved that said Marketing Queen. None of it had changed, but I had. "I'll be late tonight," I said, keeping my voice even. "Jim," then catching up with some old friends. She paused only a moment before sliding eggs onto a plate. "That's nice. Who are you seeing?" I looked at her then. Really looked the soft curls that had slipped loose from her bun, the bare shoulders. She wasn't acting guilty, just polished like someone who'd already rewritten the script. "Old army buddy. Haven't seen him in years." It was a lie, but not the kind that mattered. Not to her. Not now. She slid the plate toward me and leaned on the counter, watching my face like she was trying to read an article that didn't load right. "You okay?" she asked, a little tilt in her voice that mimicked concern, but didn't quite reach her eyes. I nodded once. Fine. That one word carried the weight of the entire previous night. She sipped her coffee. "You kind of vanished at the party. You seemed busy." Her eyes narrowed for just a second. "It was your birthday, Mike." "Was it?" I let the silence settle after that. Picked up the fork, took a bite. The eggs were good, butter just right. And somehow that made it worse because she had the nerve to feed me like nothing happened, like my absence hadn't even left a dent. So she chirped again after a beat. "Should I wait up tonight?" I looked at her slowly, letting the pause stretch just enough to make her squirm. "No need." And with that, I pushed back from the counter, rinsed the plate, and grabbed my keys. The front door clicked shut behind me with surgical precision. No slam, no drama, just the sound of a man walking out of a house that no longer felt like his. And the whole way down the street, I could feel it. Her gaze still behind me, but not with love, with calculation. She thought she'd won something last night. She hadn't even seen the opening move. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and wet concrete. One of those early spring mornings where Denver still can't decide if it's done snowing. I chose a seat by the window, habit more than preference, and stirred a cup I didn't plan to drink. Across from me sat a man named Alan Burke. He looked exactly like the kind of guy you'd never notice in a crowd. Thin-framed glasses, short sleeves despite the chill. A faded Denver Broncos tattoo on his forearm that spoke more about loyalty than sense. He was ex-cop turned private investigator, the kind of guy who saw everything and said nothing unless you paid him to. "I don't usually take domestic cases," Alan said, flipping open a leather notebook. "But your message was specific." I nodded, watching a woman walk her dog outside. "You're not here for drama, Alan. I just need to know who she's around when she's not around me." He gave a dry chuckle. "You said your wife's name was Jessica. You mind me asking what tipped you off?" I didn't answer right away. My eyes landed on a smudge on the window. A fingerprint, maybe. Smudged and gone, but proof someone had been there. "She toasted another man at my birthday party." I said, finally laughed like I wasn't standing 5 feet away. Alan didn't blink, just scribbled something in his notebook. Name of the guy. I shook my head. Didn't catch it. He had a beard, looked like he sells overpriced whiskey to board execs. That type, Alan smirked. Got it. Hipster alpha. I slid a photo of Jessica across the table. A cropped picture from a trip last year to Breenry. Her leaning against the lodge rail, wind catching her hair just right. I barely recognized the woman in it anymore. "You want phone records?" he asked, slipping the photo into his file. "No," I said, "not yet. Start with her office, lunch breaks, who she leaves work with, see if the guy from the party turns up. He gave a tight nod and stood. 2 weeks sooner, if something pops. I watched him disappear into the late morning crowd, swallowed by briefcases and bus fumes. The kind of man who moves through the city like smoke, unnoticed until the damage is done. I stepped outside and lit a cigarette I'd quit 6 years ago. The first drag hit like a confession. The second, like control. I wasn't a man chasing answers. I was a man preparing for them. It was a Tuesday when the envelope showed up. Thick manila. No return address. Just my name in blocky black ink, like it had been printed on a typewriter by someone who didn't like small talk. My office door clicked shut behind me as I sat down and opened it, with the slow, steady hands of a man who already knew what was inside. The first photo was blurry. Movement caught mid-frame, but clear enough. Jessica, that damn red dress. The one she wore to my birthday party, leaning into the man from the rooftop, her hand on his chest like she'd been there before. The next one that hit harder, the same man, same dress, her lips on his hand gripping the back of her neck like they were rehearsing a scene they both knew by heart. Not inside the party, but just outside the venue, tucked behind a row of shrubs near the valet line, like teenagers who didn't think they could get caught. But they were caught. Frame after frame, Alan had done his job. I stared at the last photo the longest, not because it was the most graphic, but because of her expression. She was laughing, eyes closed, head tilted back the same way she used to laugh with me. I placed the stack down gently like it might break if I moved too fast. Then I opened the second half of the envelope. Papers, printouts of texts, Instagram messages, check-ins. Alan had traced their connection all the way back to a strategy workshop she hosted 6 months ago. The guy was a co-worker. Sales, of course. The kind who always had just enough cologne and just enough ambition. I flipped the page. His name, Brandon Hale. I let the name settle, memorizing it like a target at the range. And then I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't even bitter. It was the smile of a man who just stopped waiting. I opened my bottom drawer, pulled out the black file I kept for client contracts, and swapped in a new label. Hale. After that, I turned to my laptop. My fingers moved automatically, calculations, spreadsheets, assets. I cross-cheat account access, looked at passwords she hadn't changed in years, and made a list. Then I started printing page after page. The machine hummed beside me, steady and mechanical, matching the rhythm of something rising in my chest. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. Because now I knew. Now it was real. And real men. Real men don't shout when they're betrayed. They prepare. She lit the candles like it was any other Thursday night. 3 of them. Fat white ones that smelled faintly like vanilla and ambition. Jessica always liked atmosphere, mood lighting, curated playlists. Wine poured into the big glasses that caught the light just right. Tonight's track list was jazz. Something soft, clever, non-committal. Dinner was salmon, citrus glaze, arugula salad, toasted pine nuts. She was smiling. I watched her across the table, noting how she draped one arm over the back of her chair. Her wine glass dancing between fingers like she hadn't kissed another man behind a row of shrubs 6 nights ago. Remember when we used to cook together? She asked, voice warm, nostalgic. Feels like forever. I offered a nod, nothing more. She picked up on the quiet but didn't press. That was her move lately. Float a little bait and hope I'd bite, but I didn't come to play. She took a sip, eyes half-lidded. You ever think maybe we're in one of those boredom phases? I raised a brow. Boredom phase. She laughed lightly. You know that space couples fall into predictable routines. No surprises, just going through the motions. I let the silence stretch. Let her stew in at a beat too long. Then I reached beneath the table and pulled out an envelope. Plain white, slim. I slid it toward her, slow and deliberate. Her smile faltered as she picked it up. "What's this?" "Open it." She peeled back the flap and pulled out 2 glossy rectangles. Spa tickets. A luxury weekend retreat just outside Aspen. Massage detox, digital detox, one-way shuttle included, Saturday departure. Her eyes darted up. "You booked this?" I nodded, figured you could use some time to clear your head. Jessica blinked. "Wait, you're not coming?" "No," I said, folding my napkin. "This trip's for you." She stared at the tickets, the silence between us stretching into something dense. "You're serious?" "I am." She let out a breathy laugh, confused, but too proud to show it. "Okay, well, that's unexpected." I stood slowly, collecting my plate. That's the idea. As I rinsed my fork in the sink, I caught her reflection in the window glass, still holding the envelope, still frozen in place. I didn't look back when I left the room. I didn't need to because I'd seen that expression before on myself. The moment you realize something is shifting underneath your feet and you have no idea which way is down anymore. She thought she understood games. But the rules had changed, and now it was my board. She was gone by sunrise. I heard the soft roll of her suitcase across the hardwood, the click of the door as it shut behind her. No goodbye, no kiss. Just the faint echo of heels down the hallway, as if she were leaving for a meeting. Not a marriage. I stayed in bed another 10 minutes, staring at the ceiling. Then I got up and got to work. First was the laptop. I sat down at the kitchen island, pulled up the shared email account, and started resetting passwords, bank login-ins, streaming services, cloud storage. Even that dumb shared Spotify playlist she insisted we curate together. Gone, locked, reclaimed. Next came the accounts, joint savings, transferred, shared checking, emptied, utilities. I scheduled disconnects for Sunday night. Just enough time for her to enjoy the spa before the lights went dark. Every click felt cleaner than the last. There was no anger anymore. Just motion. Cold, necessary motion. I paused only once. Halfway through updating the security codes on our building's door access. My thumb hovered over her name in the tenant list. For a second I stared at it. Then I deleted it. She wouldn't be needing that code anymore. By noon, I was packing a bag, not in haste, but precision. Essentials only, a few shirts, my gym gear, documents I'd already scanned. I left the wedding photo on the nightstand, still in its silver frame, her favorite shot. Us on that beach in Santa Barbara, laughing at something neither of us remembered anymore. Let it stay. Let her walk back into this apartment thinking everything was fine. Just long enough to feel the silence settle on her chest. I closed the laptop, zipped the bag, and stood in the middle of the living room, listening. The place had never been this quiet. No music, no heels tapping, no humming from the kitchen, just the faint sound of my own breath. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel much at all, just present, just ready. I opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and didn't look back. She had her spa weekend. I had work to do. By Sunday afternoon, the silence had shifted. Not the kind you sit in, but the kind that sits on you. I was at a lounge downtown. Dim lights, soft jazz, a glass of bourbon sweating quietly on a leather coaster. Across from me, my lawyer, Dev Patel, flipped through a slim folder with the calm efficiency of a man who's dismantled dozens of marriages before lunch. "She's got no separate assets," Dev said, not looking up. Everything's been under your name since you incorporated the studio. I nodded slowly. In the apartment? He smiled faintly. She'll have to find somewhere else to hum. That made me laugh, just once, just under my breath. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Jessica. The 5th one that hour. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. They all read the same between the lines. Michael, the utilities aren't working. Did you forget to pay the bill? My card was declined. Is the bank having issues? I can't log into our shared Dropbox. Did you change the password? Michael, what's going on? Panic, dressed in pleasantries. Dev glanced at the screen as it buzzed a 6th time. She's starting to realize noticed. He took a sip of water, then pushed the folder toward me. Everything's in place. We just need the timing. I want the paperwork on the table before she even steps foot back in that apartment. Dev raised an eyebrow. You sure you don't want to talk to her face to face? I looked at the glass in my hand for a long moment, watching the amber swirl. She made her choices. He nodded once. Then I'll deliver it tomorrow. Outside, the clouds were gathering. Denver spring storms like to sneak up. 1 minute sunshine, the next thunder splitting the sky like a warning shot. Inside it was calm. Me, the lawyer, the quiet drink. Her messages kept coming. I let them pile up like junk mail because she wasn't asking for me. She was asking for control. And control was no longer on the menu. The door was cracked when she came home. Not wide open, just enough to let in a sliver of the hallway light. Just enough to say, he's not here. Just enough to make her hesitate. Jessica stepped inside like the place might bite. She rolled her suitcase over the threshold, expecting warmth, maybe even a fight. What she found was silence. Thick, still cold in a way she couldn't blame on the thermostat. The living room was dim, shades drawn, the faint scent of her perfume still clinging to the air like a memory that wouldn't leave. On the coffee table sat a manila envelope square in the center, as if placed there with intention. Next to it, a neatly stacked pile of printed photos. She didn't move right away. Didn't need to. She knew. With stiff fingers, she reached down and picked up the first photograph. Her breath caught. There she was smiling, pressed close to Brandon behind the party venue. Lips locked like they were the only people in the world. The angle was cruel, clear, lit just enough to show the intent, and there were more. A full timeline of betrayal in glossy 4:6. Her knees buckled slightly, and she sat without meaning to. The envelope was heavier than she expected. Inside, divorce papers filed, signed. The reality of it didn't hit her in waves. It hit all at once, like a fall from the last rung of a ladder she didn't even realize she'd climbed. Then she noticed the text messages, hers printed and tucked under the envelope, every flutation, every plan to meet after, every emoji she thought she could send in secret. There was no defense, no gray area. She pressed her palm against her forehead, suddenly breathless, the spa weekend, the one-way shuttle. It hadn't been a gift. It had been an opening. And Michael, he'd taken it. She scrambled for her phone, heart pounding, thumb shaking. She pulled up his name. Jessica, Michael, we need to talk. Please, Jessica, I just got back. I'm home. Can you come back so we can talk? Jessica, why are you doing this? I don't understand what you want. 3 dots appeared once, then vanished. Nothing. She tried calling straight to voicemail. Her voice cracked as she left the message. Michael, I don't know what to say. Please just come home. We can fix this. You didn't even let me explain. Her own words sounded strange in her ears. Hollow. Too late. She tried again, called a mutual friend, then another. The third sent her straight to voicemail without ringing. That's when she checked her group messages. One stood out from Michael. A week ago. Michael, if any of you are wondering why I've gone quiet, here it is. The photos attached are all the explanation I owe. I've decided to move forward with peace. I hope the rest of you do too. You'd have 4 reactions. All hearts. Jessica dropped the phone. The silence around her shifted. It wasn't just quiet now. It was empty. No music, no low hum of Michael's late-night workouts, no keyboard clicks from the office. Just the faint sound of the fridge humming, and different to the implosion it witnessed. She rose from the couch like someone surfacing from a deep dive. Her legs barely moved. Her eyes scanned the apartment, every corner, every shadow, searching for some proof that this wasn't real, that he might come back. But there was nothing. Not a sock, not a toothbrush. The closet in the bedroom had one side empty, immaculately so. He'd planned this with the precision of a man building his escape like a new life. She walked back into the living room and sat again. Not because she was tired, but because there was nowhere else to stand. The silence wasn't just around her. It was inside her now. The first thing she did Monday morning was call Candace. Jessica had never really liked Candace. Too blunt, too observant. But Candace had been one of Michael's oldest friends, dating back to their army days. If anyone could give her insight, maybe smooth the edges, it would be her. The call rang once, twice, then voicemail. Hi, Candace. It's Jess. I need to talk to someone. I came home and Michael's gone. Like really gone? I know he's probably angry, and he's probably told you things that... Listen, I just need a friend right now. Someone who knew us, who knows him. Can you please call me? She hung up, but the dread only grew heavier. By noon, she tried nearly everyone. College friends, gym friends, even Michael's barber. Nothing but voicemails and unread messages. One of them, Emily, a woman she did bottomless brunch with just 2 weekends ago, texted back late in the day. Emily, hey Jess, I think it's best we give each other some space. I hope you're okay. No exclamation point, no heart emoji, just distance, clear and deliberate. Jessica stared at the screen until it blurred. She hadn't cried yet. Her body wouldn't let her. She'd spent so long pretending, managing, posturing, that now even grief didn't quite know how to show up. The apartment felt too clean. Michael's side of the closet, of the bathroom sink, the coat hooks near the door, all stripped efficiently, without cruelty, but with finality. That's what made it worse. If he'd shouted, thrown something, slammed doors, begged for answers, maybe there would have been something to grab onto, a thread she could tug. But he'd left behind only one thing, his calm. And that more than anything was unraveling her. She spent the day in old sweatpants and one of his t-shirts, curling into the couch like a question mark no one was answering. Her mind kept reaching for explanations, reasons, loopholes in the fallout. She told herself the kiss with Brandon was stupid, meaningless, some shallow rebellion against feeling invisible. She thought she could control the damage, shape the narrative, cry if she had to apologize when the heat cooled, find their way back like always. But there was no road back now, only this strange, unbearable stillness. Late that night, the doorbell rang. She ran to it. For a moment, just one fractured second. She thought it might be him. It wasn't. It was a moving company. 2 men stood in the hallway, one with a clipboard, the other holding a set of keys. She immediately recognized Michael's. The taller one cleared his throat. Jessica Walker? She nodded barely. We're here to pick up your personal belongings. Bedroom closet, bottom drawers. The rest has already been arranged for storage. She stood frozen. Who? Who sent you? The man checked the form. Michael Walker. This was scheduled last week. Of course it was. They moved through the apartment with practice detachment, folded, packed, carried. One of them unplugged the record player she'd fought to keep. The other coiled her yoga mat like it was nothing. Jessica sat in the armchair, his armchair, and watched herself be removed piece by piece. When they were done, the taller one handed her a folder. Inside, the final signed copy of the divorce petition, stamped and filed. No note, no postscript, no room left to reply, only a new return address, a studio loft across town. She ran her finger over the street name, tracing the clean print. She'd always joked that he'd never leave this apartment, that he was too sentimental, too steady. Turns out she didn't know him at all. Or maybe he just stopped letting her know. The movers left quietly. The door closed. She stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by too much space and not enough sound. For the first time, the reality settled with full weight. Michael wasn't trying to make a point. He was gone. And she wasn't the one who left. The first week passed like a fog. Jessica kept expecting the silence to break, for a message to come through, for Michael to show up. Maybe not with forgiveness, but at least with something, an argument, a question, a look that said, "This still matters." But nothing came. She stopped checking her phone after a while. The same friends who once filled her inbox with plans and compliments had turned quiet. Some hadn't followed. Others, worse, hadn't said a word. The spa weekend had become a bitter joke. She found the receipt still in her purse, crumpled next to a half-used lip balm and a folded note from her last therapy session. "Do you feel worthy of being chosen?" it asked, scrolled in her own handwriting. The irony was too loud to ignore. By day 9, she started boxing up her things. Not the expensive ones. Not the things that might have impressed people. No, what she packed were the small, familiar objects. Her worn paperback copy of The Bell Jar. That dumb turquoise mug she always used for tea. A high school photo strip of her and Michael years before the tension when they could barely keep a straight face long enough for the shutter. The apartment had become a museum she no longer belonged to. And yet, every room whispered his name. She tried to remember the last real conversation they'd had. Not logistics, not plans conversation where they sat face to face and talked like two people on the same team. She couldn't find it. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped seeing him as a man and started seeing him as a prop in her performance. The reliable one, the quiet strength, the man who would always be there, no matter how far she leaned away. She thought his steadiness meant she could bend him. What she didn't understand was he wasn't bending. He was waiting. And now he was rebuilding. It was late Friday when the final delivery came. A plain brown box. No return label, just her name. Handwritten in Michael's tight, neat print. Inside were her remaining things. A watch she'd given him on their 4th anniversary. A set of Polaroids from their Santa Fe trip. A letter. She unfolded it carefully. No greeting, no sign-off. Just a handful of words. No resentment. Just release. "You taught me how to leave." "Thank you." That's when the tears came. Not loud, not theatrical, just steady. A slow unraveling of everything she thought she could control. It was in that moment, surrounded by empty closets and echoing rooms, that she finally understood he hadn't abandoned her. He had outgrown her. Michael wasn't punishing her. He was done waiting for her to see his worth. And he left without taking anything but his self-respect. She curled up on the floor beside the couch, too tired to move, too ashamed to sleep. The walls around her were the same, the view from the window unchanged. But the air didn't carry him anymore. And in its place was a stillness she couldn't negotiate, because the man who used to make her laugh was gone. And she hadn't even noticed when he stopped. It was a wedding of someone neither of us expected to last. An old college friend of mine, Jonah, the kind of guy who thought commitment was a suggestion, not a promise. And yet here he was, in a gray tux, misty-eyed, sliding a ring onto the trembling hand of a woman who looked like she still hadn't quite exhaled since walking down the aisle. I sat near the back alone by choice. I wasn't here to socialize, wasn't here to be seen. I was here for closure. 6 months had passed since I walked out of that apartment, since I reset every password, changed the locks, and left my wedding ring in the drawer beside hers. 6 months since I chose myself. A jazz trio played something soft as guests clinked glasses and settled in for dinner. I've been keeping a low profile, training harder, sleeping deeper, building out my second gym across town. My circle was tighter now. Fewer handshakes, more hand-picked allies, and her Jessica was across the room. I saw her the moment she entered. That slow, careful walk, hair pinned just right, the kind of dress that used to command attention, now worn like armor. She laughed once too loudly, and then quickly quieted, scanning the room as if she already felt eyes on her. She didn't see me at first. I watched her float between tables like a woman trying to belong somewhere again. Like she hadn't figured out who she was without the man she used to measure herself against. When our eyes finally met, it was brief. Her steps slowed. The tension in her jaw gave her away. She hesitated just enough for me to see it, for everyone to see it. But then she crossed the room with a smile so rehearsed I could almost hear the cue card flipping in her head. "Michael," she said like a question. I nodded. "Jessica." She looked me over. Button-down shirt tucked, new watch, calm in my shoulders. But what held her gaze the longest was the woman beside me. A friend from the gym. Real smile, easy laughter, nothing forced. Jessica's eyes flicked toward her, then back to me. "You look good," she said. I smiled politely. "Thank you. Life's been kind lately." She opened her mouth, searching for something clever, something to bridge the silence. But what came out was softer. "I didn't think you'd be here. Jonah asked me personally. We go back." She nodded, then looked down at her drink, fingers fidgeting with the rim. A pause. "Then I've been meaning to reach out. Say something." "You just did." She blinked, taken off guard by the finality in my tone. I didn't let it linger. Instead, I leaned in slightly, voice low enough that only she could hear. "You stopped laughing when I left, didn't you?" She froze. Her hand tightened around the glass, and for a moment, I saw all of it on her face. The denial, the grief, the regret curling at the edges of her mascara. But I didn't wait for an answer. I stepped back, offered a nod, and returned to my table. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no reply, just the quiet crumble of a roll. She could no longer play. The band shifted into something upbeat. People clapped, rose to dance. The woman beside me leaned in. "Old friend, something like that," I said, smiling. As the music swelled and laughter filled the room, I sat back and let it all move around me. There was no rage left in me, no revenge, just release. And the quiet satisfaction of a man who had rebuilt, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. The chapter had closed, not with a scream, but with a whisper and a clean, deliberate turn of the page. If this story hit home, share your thoughts below. Would you have walked away or made her stay? Let's talk in the comments.